Good evening, folks. Welcome to episode 5 of the Due North Political Podcast. I got Mike Machenbacher, Ryan Schumacher, and Leon had something come up suddenly. So our hot seat guest, Dustin Goverlow of the founder of Policy Matters, is going to step in for the entire show. Dustin, welcome to Due North Political Podcast. I hope we have a little fun tonight.
Good to be here. Hopefully I don't get canceled.
Thanks for volunteering to go through the whole show with us. We'll get to your stuff in a minute, okay? Guys, we start out each show with, first we got to talk about who wins the award for most views of Reels from episode 4, and I'm on my third one now, you guys. It was a close race this time. Mike, you got within 100 views of me, 103 or something like that, so maybe this week.
Yeah, well, much like the elections, Perry, I think this thing is rigged.
Folks, we also start the show with the jobs of Rubio. So we've got a couple this week. Of course, Artemis landed, right? So Rubio had to be Mr. Scuba Diver and go get those folks. Isn't it amazing, guys, how exact they are that they narrow that landing? I mean, it's just, I guess it's math, but it's overwhelming.
That's pretty impressive.
And then Rubio had a very important job. He is Catholic, folks, so he said he was going to step in for the Pope because the Pope got on the wrong side of the president, so Rubio, he wears lots of hats. Okay, folks, we start out each week with what we call My 2 Cents. And My 2 cents is I asked each guy the same question. We get a little bit different response from everybody. We get their opinion. This week's question is, give me an example of an American voter contradicting him or herself when comparing policy versus action to implement that said policy. American voters tend to waffle a bit, I like to say. So, Mike, we're starting with you. Give us an example of where you see the American voter not living it necessarily up to what they voted for.
Well, I guess the first one that would come to mind to me is probably the war in Iran, and I'm sure everyone's heard all the rhetoric that, Trump is leading us into World War III or Trump is going to commit genocide and all that. But when the clock was ticking for Iran, on the original ceasefire agreements, that's all the media could talk about. And leftists everywhere, they were repeating it all over social media. But then, Trump calls off the military action within just a few hours of the clock running out. And then the left and the media all turn on him once again. And, I heard the word taco so many times, I thought they were advertising for Chipotle. I heard it, I heard it stated at least 50 times in 3 hours. So do you want the war or not? It's just further examples of Trump derangement syndrome. And no matter what Trump gives them, give them what they want, or by not attacking Iran or not committing a genocide, not getting us into World War III, and then they complain about it and say he chickened out. It's just, further proof that no matter what he does, they're going to hate Trump.
Just got to take a few pills, people. In 6 hours, he'll say something different, 12 hours. Just wait till the result, and then we'll judge it off that. You know what I mean? But yes, the American voter, that was a great example because it was all over social media. Oh man, he chickened out. See, he chickened out. And oh my God, he's gonna blow up the entire world. He's gonna ruin he's taking out their civilization. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, doesn't it
Ryan,
just? All right. It just shows me that they don't have an issue besides we hate Trump. He can do no good no matter what he does.
Ryan,
Well,
what's yours?
half of what Trump says is he'll keep saying things over and over. He's not going to tell you when he's going to do something. He's not going to. He'll say it. He'll pull it back. He'll say it. He'll pull it back. Same thing that he did with Venezuela. He said we're going to go in. We're not going to go in. Time passed, and then all of a sudden they went in unexpectedly. So by doing his shifting that he does on back and forth like that, I think it just keeps people guessing and doesn't know when he's actually going to do something.
After 8 years, we should know that this is what it's going to be, right? And like tonight, he canceled it again for a few days till they see what the negotiations are like. But he could go in 3 hours from now. It could just be a con, set these guys up. So just calm down and let's see what happens. Ryan, what's your example of the American voter waffling?
Well, my example is not having to do with Trump because he actually says what he's going to do, whether people are upset with it or not, of his tactics. But my example is the recently elected Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger, who campaigned as a moderate during the campaign season, said she would govern center left or govern moderately. She won the vote by 60 or by 15%, getting 60% of the vote. And in order to get that much vote, she had to have independents voting for her. And there had to have been a few of the center right independents. But after 4 months in office now, she's made a hard pivot to the left. People are starting to cry foul that this isn't what they voted for. She's proposed or enacted laws to make Virginia a sanctuary state, enacted green energy mandates, raised taxes, allowed felons to vote, and is making a hard push for some very unimaginable gun restriction laws there in the state. So much so that she had 60% of the vote 4 months ago or 5 months ago in November, and now she's lost 15% on her support, and her approval ratings are break even, the mid 40% range. She's had the biggest drop of any Virginia governor in their first 4 months of their term. And so these people are now crying foul that, hey, this is what we voted for. But you're going to have to realize that with Democrats, they never are who they are and what they're going to do. At least Trump does what he says he's going to do. But Democrats will say, we're going to be moderate. And then they'll take a page out of the Biden's playbook.
Today they have a big vote in Virginia. The redistricting vote is going on today, and it's going to be another big deal. And you never. I think Carville said last week. I even saw something where he said we want to stack the courts, we want to do this, that, all these leftist, socialist things, but don't run on any of it. Don't say a word of it. We'll just implement it. That's their mode. That's how they operate. Never trust a Democrat. Christ almighty.
You can run on that platform in Minneapolis or New York City, but you can't run a statewide election on that platform.
Okay,
Yeah, I
Dustin,
was gonna
it's your
say-
turn. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say Mom Dami is really the only person I know of that's successfully been able to run on a far left platform. Every other Democrat runs as centrist and then moves left. But you'd think by now people would figure that out, but apparently they haven't.
On Dami. Dustin, your turn for the waffling of the American voter.
Well, our connection just fritzed out for a half a second, but
I got you back.
awesome. I think voters want change. They don't necessarily care what that change looks like. They don't necessarily ask for what the plans are on how to make the change happen. So that's why inevitably every president at that midterm, it is historically inevitable that the party that holds the White House is going to switch in the Congress is going to switch sides or have massive losses. I've been predicting that in the House, Republicans will probably lose at least 30 seats, maybe upward of 60. And those numbers are based off of the fact that in 2006, the Democrats gained 30 seats. And in 2010, during the Tea Party wave, Republicans gained 60 seats. So that's kind of my range of what's going to change. And as we've seen the pendulum swing back and forth wildly ever since the end of the Bush era, going from Obama to Trump to Biden back to Trump, the public doesn't necessarily like what they get, but they don't want the alternatives either. And so right now we're kind of in this catch-22 circular loop pattern where simultaneously the voters want something different, even if that means getting the same thing. And so it's kind of this self-fulfilling prophecy problem where if you always want something different and are never happy with what you have, you're never going to get what you want.
Let me give you a couple of examples on my end. See if you, these are more, I guess, targeted at the independent. But Trump, the reason he won the presidency way back in 2016 is as soon as he came down the escalator and said, we're kicking illegals out of here. Okay. Biden brings in 14-ish million of these people. Some we don't even know, right? I mean, it's incredible. With the help of lots of NGOs, however they got here, they're here. Well, the American voter says, and he ran again in 2024 on this, we're going to get rid of the illegals. And he is sending them back. He's starting with the criminals. But we're already up in arms because of the way we're doing it with the criminals. Like, did you think the Democrats were going to make this easy on you, independents? Did you think it was going to look pretty on the TV? It's going to be ugly. And it's only going to get uglier once they start going after families that are not criminals. But do you want them out of here or don't you? Example 2, Obamacare. Man, healthcare sucks. We got to redo this. We got to redo this. Obamacare is terrible. All it did was make prices go up. Okay, well, let's not vote. Let's not renew it. Oh my God, my subsidies. What happened to my subsidy? There's nothing that says affordable like a subsidy, right? I mean, it's just, seriously, people, can you think? Do you have a brain? And my third one, inflation, right? We're all arguing about how much stuff costs. Do you remember the damn COVID cash you got? You think that had anything to do with it? That was with our president too, handing this stuff out, because you got to shut things down because of the flu. And now it can't be fixed. It was so much money into the system printed, but don't you think those are people are warped. You got to either walk the walk or stay the hell home. Mike, what do you think?
Well, I was kind of thinking of something on a little bit different line when you were mentioning the change, like Dustin mentioned, and then how it seems like every candidate runs on some sort of change. And I was wondering if there is a platform that, I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican, but if there is a candidate that could put together a platform that the majority of Americans could get behind, and you could have support from both sides. Because I don't think it exists, because I just think, the left and the right now, I don't think they agree on anything anymore. So you're always going to have the shifting, the changing, you're going to have the swings. And like Dustin said, the pendulum is going to continue to go back and forth. I think the only people that win out of that is maybe the stock market, because they like it when you have conflict, so nothing changes. So
you're making this judgment, though. You're making this judgment a little over, we're just slightly over a year into an administration where we're going to kick illegals out. I mean, this is a 4-year process, and it's going to be ugly, because the media is going to be all over this. Every sob story is going to be on TV, right? Minneapolis is going to play that up for everything. So, I mean, hang with the guy for a little bit, especially when it's such a fundamental change. But these people didn't get here by accident. it's going to take effort to get rid of them.
Well, you remember
And
in
you-
2016, Trump had articles of impeachment drafted in the first 2 weeks of him being president. I mean, so no, they don't have any, they don't have any intention of letting him
So does
even, get the wheels turning at all. It's, Republican, and I don't know if it's all Republicans or if it's just Trump that they have such a hatred for. We'll find out next time we have a Republican president, but it's just a fact. They wanted him out of there within 2 weeks, and he hadn't done anything yet. So
There's two corners. There's two corners, right and left, but then there's that squishy middle, right? And that middle, just like Dustin says, it's like a clock. You know what I mean? The pendulum is so. I mean, seriously, people, you're supposed to be the middle, so stay in the middle. How do you waver so much?
The faulty premise in all of this is the fact that you're not going to get a platform that everybody agrees with, because that's based on the concept that government should offer everybody something or a solution to their issue. And until the masses realize that government isn't the solution to any of these problems, and that you have to get it out of the way, and that goes for the money issues, that goes for the social issues. If you're a conservative and your issue is related to controlling other people's behavior, the only way that you can do that is with government force. And that's not a conservative mindset. You may have a conservative agenda, but you're not conserving government. And until we get back to the point where we conserve government and the power of government and get people to realize that the problem is expecting and asking government to do things that it shouldn't be involved with, whether it is on the subsidy side or corporate welfare or regular welfare, or telling people how to live their lives in their bedrooms or in their cars, what kind of gas they should buy, or what kind of engine they should have in their vehicle. Until the government gets out of all those things, you're never going to have a platform that everybody agrees with. And it's not even about everybody. You need 50% plus one. That's how a democratic republic like America operates. And the goal should be to get that 50% plus one to realize that the less government does, the better.
Ryan will give you the last word on our 2 cents.
Well, you're always going to have that pendulum shift, because the ones getting nominated, especially for higher offices across the country, you're not going to have those moderates. Like I said, Spanberger, she campaigned as a moderate, but she wasn't a moderate. Whether it's Republican or Democrat, you're not going to get the nomination unless by taking the center ground in your primary. And then you're kind of stuck to getting those independents, and that's where you're going to see the pendulum swings, because you're going to have extremes on all sides. You're not going to have an independent that's going to win a major election. And getting back to the immigration thing with Trump, I'm sure many Democrats would be surprised to hear that Obama deported more illegals than Trump has. Detainees also died while being detained under Obama. It's just that the media wasn't fixated on it like they are now, because anything and everything that Trump does, it needs to be reported on.
Guys, we're going to move on and we're going to keep this segment a little short because we got our hot seat tonight, okay? But we got our our fire away segment, where I'm going to ask you a specific question. Each one of you will have a different answer. This one's going to be interesting. I'm interested to hear what you guys say, but we're going to shorten it up a little bit, okay? If you believe the current polls, Dustin, I'll leave you to it earlier. This is kind of a segue into this question. Trump 2.0 is going to only last till the November midterms before being neutered by a Democrat Congress and impeach-a-palooza. If that is what happens, who is more to blame for this result and why? A, Trump. B, his cabinet. C, federal judges and the judiciary as a whole. D, Congress. Or E, his supporters. We'll start with you, Ryan. A, B, C, or D, or E.
I'm going to go with E, his supporters. And I would say lumping in his supporters would be those independents that voted for Trump in 24 and those people that vote in presidential elections but don't vote in the midterms. Since they voted for him once, I'm going to call them his supporters. And those people are either not going to vote this next time around, or they're going to look at, like we talked about with immigration, and be like, oh my God, this is chaos. We can't do this. These tactics are so tough. We didn't vote on this. This isn't what we voted for. And so these people aren't going to vote for the Republicans in the midterms, or not vote at all. And Democrats will overtake Congress. It'll be impeachment here, obstruction there. And then once it's over, and once we get the newly elected Congress, these voters will be like, well, this isn't productive. And what they expect was going to happen. So I would say
Mike, you're up.
supporters.
Fire away.
Well, of the 5 you mentioned, is all of the above an answer? Or
I was going to say, is there a wrong answer to this?
well, yeah. I mean, could you say, is Trump to blame? I mean, it could be, because he really does come across as being very unlikable, regardless of his policies. His cabinet could be to blame, because some, not all, but some of them
I'm not
are.
letting you cop out. You got to pick one.
Okay, I'll get to one here. Okay, I mean, some of his cabinet are ineffective, some are good, but that could be part of it. The federal judges certainly could have a play in it, because they're not allowing his policies that were popular with the voters to go into effect, and Congress not codifying into law his executive orders. Those all play into it. But I would say, though, I'm going to agree with Ryan on this one. I think most of the blame is probably on the supporters. Anyone who voted for Trump in 2024, they're now saying, I'm going to sit this one out. I think that's the biggest problem. And Ryan started to allude to this, but they might have a point, that Republicans didn't accomplish everything that they said they would, but they need to realize if they're going to sit it out, they're essentially voting for the other guy. And, they need to remember how life was for them prior to 2025. And you remember, the big 3 things the American people supported: border, crime, economy. And that was the 3 things that Trump seemed to concentrate on, and that's what I believe got him elected. They wanted the border closed, that happened. They wanted crime to be reduced, which has been happening, and they wanted a strong economy, which is happening currently. So, maybe they didn't get everything, but they need to remember, what's the alternative? If you sit out or vote for the other guy, whatever it be, we're going to be right back to where we were prior to 2025. The border is going to be wide open. People are going to be coming in unchecked. Criminals will be let back out on the streets to terrorize the citizens again. And the economy very likely can end up in shambles. Remember where inflation was under Biden? Do we want to go back to that again? Even if you don't like where we're at today, the alternative is much worse. So I would agree with Ryan. I think everybody needs to get out and vote, and maybe we can keep moving the needle a little bit at a time, but you need to remember, what's the alternative? Do we want to go back to where we were before 2025?
Dustin, do you have a choice?
Well, my initial thought was to pull the Truman quote of "the buck stops here" and say it's Trump's fault. But you know what? That is actually the easy way out.
Oh, so I took the easy answer.
And now the voters who voted for Trump expecting something different, that's kind of along the lines of definition of insanity, right? Is voting for the same thing and expecting different results. This is what he said he was going to do the first term and didn't, because he had a cabinet that was restraining him, because he didn't hire his own cabinet the first time around. He let the Republican Party hire that cabinet, and it was far more professional than he wanted it to be. So now this time he got the cabinet that he wants. They don't know how to implement his policies, because his policies don't actually exist outside of his head and his Twitter. And they have to try to figure out how to implement his rants as law. And the system is not designed for the feelings and the rantings of one person to be implemented in a quick way. The founders intentionally set up our system of government to make it hard for that sort of thing to happen. They intentionally set up the other branches to get in the way of that happening. Now, Congress has done nothing to get in the way of the president's agenda. The courts
What the
have,
hell?
and
Okay,
that's
we might have to start hot seat right now. I don't know. Because Dustin, I think you live in a different world than I do. His first cabinet sabotaged him the entire time. Yeah, they might have been professional. Seriously. Should we start the hot seat?
Go ahead.
The Congress
Go
has
ahead.
helped. The Congress is, other than the big beautiful bill, what has the Congress done to help Donald Trump?
The Congress has done nothing either direction. The Congress couldn't even come up with a plan to implement the DOGE cuts or
Yep.
even
Maybe I-
review the
maybe I
DOGE
missed
cuts
something.
to implement, figure out which of them they wanted to implement. They didn't want to do any work. The Congress is lazy. This is the laziest Congress probably in the history of America.
Then I apologize. I must have misunderstood you because I thought you said they've been doing whatever
Helpful
they
to him,
want.
yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah.
I thought he said they've been helpful to him, so I understood it. I misunderstood as well.
Yeah.
There was
Okay, all right.
there's a connection lag when I'm talking. I think maybe that's a connection with on my end. But what I had said was that the Congress has done nothing to help the president, nor have they done anything to get in the way. They have just done nothing. That's what I was saying. The big beautiful bill was a conglomeration and concoction of wish lists to get to the point of a bill that could just barely pass because everybody got their little bit into it, which is the opposite of what was wanted, prior to the Trump era. Remember when conservatives were against omnibus bills? Well, the big beautiful bill, that was the omnibus bill to end all omnibus bills. That was the whole point. And so if you wanted them to do something different, you shouldn't have put all your eggs in the one basket called the one big beautiful bill.
I'm going to go with, before we get to the hot seat, I think you're right. Every answer is correct, but I went with Trump. Buck stops there. He, on the deep state and the corruption, he hires Elon Musk. They go in, they do the Doge thing. He doesn't whip Congress at all, like Reagan did. So he doesn't get he uses guys like John Thune and Lindsey Graham. On the corruption side, you keep firing DOJ attorney generals until you finally get one that's going to do something. Or releasing things, releasing why he got shot in Butler, Pennsylvania. Walk down to that office, grab the papers yourself because you're the boss, and say, here they are. I just took them from my Department of Justice, and here they are. They're for the American people. Epstein, too, all of these things. Russian hoax, he should have done that in his first term, kept hoping his DOJ would do it. Now grab the papers yourself and show them. He didn't write them, he's just showing them. You have the control. So do something with it. The only thing he seems to be good at is the foreign policy things, because he doesn't have to come down hard on his Republican buddies that kiss his butt. He gets to do that all by himself. And so therefore but that's my reasoning. We're going to go to our hot seat segment. I found this GIF, and remember this, guys?
Oh yeah, airplane.
Just want to let you know we're not counting on you.
Tonight we got Dustin in. Dustin is our first guest. It's something we're going to start each show now. We're going to bring you a different guest. We're going to try to keep it informative, right, rather than just opinion based. So we've got a list of questions. Let me get to them. These are kind of topics. It's going to be a little point counterpoint. I'll state the topic. Dustin can give his argument for or against, and then we'll have one of you guys respond to it, either agreeing or disagreeing, or maybe finding a happy middle. Number one, is there any place, and this can go for anybody, is there any place for fiscal conservatives anymore? Or has Trump made Dick Cheney's deficits don't matter policy dogma? Anybody? Dustin, where do you come down on this?
It certainly seems that way. It seems that because he was never because Donald Trump was never truly a fiscal conservative in the first place, as our own Senator Kramer said in his first term, that we're stuck in kind of limbo. And it was always a problem that Republicans would preach about fiscal conservatism and restraint when they were in a minority and do nothing when they were in a majority. But now we've gone 10 full years where Republicans in and out of the majority do not take any action on fiscal conservatism or anything of the sort. I mean, Republicans were far more conservative during the Obama years when we had the end of the earmarks and things like that. And so now, once we have gone through 12 years essentially of Republicans not talking about fiscal issues at all and just spending like drunken Democrats, the question is that's a political generation. So is there enough left over for the next political generation to grab onto, or is it going to be completely in history that simply we've got two parties that are just in the game of spending, and it's depending on which priorities they spend on?
One of you guys want to take that?
Well, I'll ask Dustin this if he agrees with it too. I think on our last show or the time before, I had mentioned that the problem now with spending is that you're going to have to make cuts to major programs, and neither party wants to be in charge when these cuts are going to be made. So, first of all, I would just ask Dustin, do you agree with that statement? And if so, is it going to require an absolute? I mean, are we going to have to be on the brink of our country being completely bankrupt and other countries calling the notes to their debt before Republicans and Democrats get together and say, okay, well, we have to start cutting some of these entitlement programs? What do you think will be the tipping point?
The tipping point will be when it gets so bad that the fiscally conservative thing to do is to advocate for that high income people pay the same rates as low income people. Just recently, there was a New York Times article and video about how because of the way that income is called earned versus unearned, not only do you have the subsidy and loophole problem where the high income folks are able to avoid paying income tax, you also have the problem where they're able to leverage investments, take out loans, and basically treat the loans as if they were income instead, but it's not earned income. And so there's this whole formula that is used to get around these things. This is why Elon Musk has an effective income tax rate of like 1.5%, things like that. So eventually it's going to get so bad, and we will have hit the point of no return on spending cuts, that the fiscal conservative thing will be to advocate a higher and flatter tax on the upper incomes. Whereas in the past, advocates of a flat tax, the point of that was to reduce it for everybody. But things are going to get so bad that the flat tax has to be at the higher level for the higher incomes, just as it is at the lower incomes.
Well, do you think we can just solve this problem with getting rid of the loopholes? I mean, instead of even adjusting the tax rates, just because I agree. I mean, any businessman or individual would be stupid to not take advantage of the loopholes that are out there. So why not just close all the loopholes and everybody has to pay their whatever income tax rate that they're at? So I don't think we need to raise taxes. We just need to close loopholes. But then the other thing we need to do is we actually need to cut spending if we're ever going to get outside, get out from underneath this debt.
Don't you think the fraud is 30% of this thing now? Isn't it been proven?
I don't know if any of that has actually been proven, but when we talk about loopholes, there's two types of loopholes. And there's the traditional loopholes that in the tax code, you can take these write-offs and deductions. What I'm talking about is the actual definition of income. We define income as a subset. Earned income is a subset of the money people make. So what I'm suggesting is that ultimately the conservative thing to do is going to be to say that all income, no matter the source or no matter the process, is treated the same as if you or I are going out making $20 an hour at McDonald's.
Well,
So
that's what they're trying to do now in California with the wealth. I mean, it's essentially the wealth tax.
right. And so ultimately that's going to mean income, whether it is on investments or rentals or capital gains, every dollar you make gets taxed at the same rate, regardless of how you made it. That's where we're heading to where fiscal conservatism is going to be defined, because there won't be enough cuts in the fraud or the other things to make a dent. And let's not forget, just in the last 2 weeks, we've been told that we don't have the money for the entitlements that we've all been paying in because we've got to pay for wars.
Oh, stop it. We didn't have the money 20 years ago either. So we have congressmen. This doesn't sit on Trump's desk or his fault. We have congressmen that have been there 30, 40 years, right? We can name them all.
Mm-hmm.
They can't even, how long have our guys been there? Quite a while. They
15
couldn't
if
even
they're Tea
implement
Partiers.
they couldn't implement the Doge cuts. So
They didn't
there
want to.
might be 6 fiscal conservatives in the entire joint in DC. So this doesn't sit on any one president. It's a culture, because it won't get you reelected. You've made that point before, right, Ryan? There's nobody more fiscally conservative than me and you, but it's impossible. We're asking for an impossibility.
Every entitlement is an entitlement that is never going to be cut. No, Republican, Democrat, they're never going to cut it. It doesn't lead to re-election. That's all they care about at the higher levels. And you're never going to see a meaningful cut to whether it be fraud programs or NGOs or any of the Dodge cuts or any other entitlement program in my lifetime or in your children's lifetime. Only way it's going to happen is if something happens to us like Greece or Argentina, where the piper comes knocking. But otherwise, we're just going to keep spending. There's never going to be an entitlement that's going to go away because it's going to be a lost vote.
Let's go to the next question in the hot seat with Dustin. Should we just accept that each time power switches hands, it will be weaponized against the loser until the system collapses? Dustin, what's your response to that question?
We should not accept that, because if that is the norm, then it means that we've lost the constitutional republic and the rule of law completely. And we are very close to that being the case, but that is not how it should be. The trouble is that we do not have the types of principled leaders that can avoid that at this point. And there's going to need to be an entire attitude change in not only the people that run for office, but the people who vote for them. If the citizens themselves believe that the other team, in quotes, should be sent to jail or punished or whatever, just because their side won and the other side was mean to them, then we're going down that very bad road. And there is going to be a point of no return on that as well.
Ryan, you got a counterpoint for him?
Well, I think the cat's out of the bag, but I don't know that I would call what Trump is doing now as weaponization against the loser. What truly was weaponization was what they did to Trump during his first 4 years in office and between 2020 and 2024, when you had Russia, when you had Obama, Hillary, the FBI, CIA doing what they needed to do, trying to dig up all these lies to keep him from first getting elected and then kneecapping him in his presidency, and then having all these secretaries of state trying to keep him off the ballot, having all these state prosecutors trying to indict him on whatever made up charges. that itself was truly a weaponization of government. And I don't think what Trump is doing now is to that level, but I also don't ever see the Democrats not using that as a weapon going forward.
So let me ask you this, Mike. What's the difference between justice and weaponization?
Gee, that's a big
Very
word.
good
You
question.
expect me to
Justice versus weaponization.
between justice and weaponization?
Is one man's justice one
Um,
man's weaponization, or shouldn't justice be justice?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's certainly a difference between the two, but it seems like now that they seem to be hand in hand because especially right now that Democrats are trying to throw, they have been trying to throw Trump in jail for everything, even when he started, stated that he was going to run for president again. So is it justice, or are they just weaponizing the system against him? And I think the most difficult part as far as weaponizing is what the federal, the judges are doing around the country, making pretty much everything he does illegal. And he can't, I mean, are these people the president of the United States? I mean, were these people elected by a majority of the people, 80 million people in the country? No, they weren't. But whatever, Trump or Republican Congress would pass, they're going to somehow deem it unconstitutional. And they, thank God we've got a majority on the Supreme Court, because if a case makes it that far, there's a good chance they might rule in our favor. But still, they delay it 2-3 years sometimes. So yeah, they're absolutely weaponizing it, but I don't know if that's justice. Is there really any justice anymore when it comes to that? It's mostly weaponized.
Dustin, I want to come full circle. So I said last week on Open Range that can you be a serious country when you got Ketanji Brown, or however the hell her name is pronounced, as a Supreme Court justice? So to say that there's justice now, equal justice, if we don't think these judges are activists in some district in New Mexico or state of Washington, shutting down everything for the country, how do you ever get justice on the right? Can you imagine being a conservative in the state of New York or the state of Washington and thinking you're going to get justice?
Well, I would say that all of this goes back to, the fact that Donald Trump originally ran on sending Hillary Clinton to jail and all of her friends, and they took that seriously, and they decided that they were going to destroy him because of it. And so even though no action was taken during that first term on that, the threat, the potential threat of that was enough for them. And so activist judges go both directions. All of these judges, you can look at the judge.
Show me one on my side. I mean, it's a sudden question, but can you give me an example?
Well,
Where's one on my side?
If you want a judge to do something political, you are wanting them to be an activist by definition, right? So
I want them to follow the law. I don't think the left activists do. They make it up. That's why they keep
right activists do.
That's why they keep getting overturned. I don't see right district courts throughout the country getting overturned like they do in California, 9-0. That doesn't happen on the right. This is not equal.
These districts have always that's part of the checks and balances, that these judges are appointed by each president along the way. And you can go and look at the ones that were appointed by Reagan. If you noticed, when the judge is appointed by Reagan or Bush, the media makes a big deal about it because it gives credibility to that decision. And when you have decisions from Reagan and Bush judges that are lining up with decisions from Clinton and Obama judges, then that gives them a lot of clout. You got to remember that lawyers and judges, their definition of things and proving it is more of a scientific approach to debate. They have to be able to, in theory at least, or they should, show here's how this law has been applied 72 other times. And so we're going to keep applying it that way. That's the way they're supposed to do things. The problem is when that is no longer the dynamic and the people who do the appointing or the people that do the confirming expect a different result using methodology that is not based on another set of case law, right? And so this is why people get so frustrated with courts and judges and lawyers, because to a regular person, a lot of it looks very academic. But to them, they see that their role in that as part of maintaining a historical infrastructure for these processes. And so when you want these, the district attorneys to do certain things, when the district attorney, getting to your question about justice versus weaponization, when the president expects a district or U.S. attorney to take action against a particular person, that's weaponization, because that's not how the system's supposed to work.
Exactly what they did to neuter his presidency in his first term. So if 98% of the time we can all predict where the four Supreme justices on the left are going to come down and vote, right? 98% of the time, right? You get to Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, even Roberts, maybe it's 65, 70% of the time. There is a difference in judges. We're going to go to the last question. The hot seat. We don't like to keep these too long. This one I'm going to take, me and Dustin, and then you guys can chip in. Has the Republican Party abandoned free market principles permanently under Trump, the same way that Bush said he abandoned free market principles to save the free market? Lay it on me, Dustin. What's your argument?
Much the same way as the last question about Dick Cheney's deficits don't matter. It does seem that way because we've seen now the federal government under Republicans, under Trump, now getting into the business of acquiring shares and percentages of private corporations, as long as those private corporations take the federal money and do things the way the federal government wants. And while it may be at a small scale, ultimately this is part of the slippery slope to more state-run corporate activity, more state-run industry, and we're approaching a microcosm where America, under Republican leadership, is starting to look at state capitalism in a miniature version of what China has been doing for the last 40 years. And when the federal government is in the business of picking winners and losers, not only from a subsidy standpoint, but from an ownership standpoint, that's going to change the dynamic of how government operates. And it's going to give an opportunity to certain factions who want to call this sort of thing fascism a little bit of credibility when they make those claims.
Would you say, so I'm gonna ask you, so it started with Bush, possibly even before then, it just became obvious under Bush, right? Mm-hmm. So this isn't a Trump problem. It's maybe in your argument, a continuation or taking it to the next level. Were the largest tax cuts in history abandoning the free market? Increasing energy production, was that abandoning the free market? We would even argue his going into and doing this in the Strait of Hormuz is free market, because he wants to free up that strait from being the hostage of the Iranians 365 days a year on their whim, what they want to do. He wants to open up that strait for the entire world. So I would suggest that's free market. I guess maybe like before, I misinterpreted your question. Yeah, I didn't get down to the level of who's buying ownership in things. I guess North Dakota has a state bank too, right? But he's kicking people out of our hemisphere that are adversaries. He wants control of resources for our benefit. If free market was sending every damn job to China, if that was called free market, every job to China. So when we drive to our rural communities, Hazen, Beulah, you name them, everywhere you guys go, Napoleon, Linton, and see the destruction, the abandonment there. Everybody's left because there's no industry here where these small towns fed those big industries in the Bismarcks and the Fargos. All that stuff left, and we were just supposed to learn code. If that was free market, then this guy's right. He's bringing it back here to maybe recreate that. I would say he's just resetting the free market because what was done before was a lie. But we did get to buy a cheap suit, but the jobs all left.
The thing that has been missing in this reset of the economy is the fact that he got the cart before the horse. If you're going to try to promote domestic production, you need to get the domestic production underway before you cut yourself off. And that's what we are at now, that we've cut off the importation of these things. It's going to increase inflation ultimately. And then once those companies are sitting back waiting for things to change, they're waiting for a new president to come in because they believe the next president is just going to dial things right back. And this is the dilemma of trying to do things by edict rather than by policy, because everybody in those businesses can either just sit back, collect the paycheck because their goods are going to go up in price. So they make out like bandits in the short term. And then they just have to wait for the next guy to come in and flip the switch back. And so at some point, this kind of brings us full circle to the first question about change. The voters want change, but they don't know what it takes to get change. And at some point, there's going to be a realization that ultimately all of these things have been put in place. None of them were done in a constitutional way, which means that none of them are permanent. And so all you've done is created short-term disruption and short-term pain, which is going to actually lead to more long-term disruption and long-term pain than it would have otherwise. We all knew the economy was a house of cards 10 years ago, 20 years ago. The trouble is that there has not been a strategic approach to fixing that, because none of the things that have been put in place in these years are set up in a way to sustain and to be permanent.
What is strategic about Congress?
Well, it's not about the president's job is to do two things: implement what Congress passes and tell Congress what to pass. This president doesn't like to do either one of those. And so we've gotten away. This is my root problem with the way that the Trump era has disrupted the Republican Party. Republicans and conservatives used to be strict constructionists, right? We believed that the Constitution meant something and laws meant something. And now we have adopted, as conservatives and as Republicans, the idea that those things are hinged on one person. And as long as those things hinge on one person, those things mean nothing anymore. And we have accepted the premise that liberals have put forth for decades, that nothing in the Constitution matters. And if nothing in the Constitution matters for either party, we don't have a country anymore.
Let's give you guys each a minute. I just want to leave. That was my question. I think Congress likes it that way. I think they like no responsibility and just move everything to the executive branch, and then it's his deal. And I run either on his success or I would have done something different. But you can't blame me because I didn't do a thing. Mike, you got a minute. Ryan, you take a minute.
Well, I would say, going back to the original free market conversation that we were having there, as a former business owner, I would say the biggest inhibitor of business is not taxes, it's regulation. And there's so many regulations that make it so difficult for American companies to operate and to make a profit, that this is why you see so many jobs shipped overseas, because they're going to have to find some way to save, and most of the time it's in labor costs. But I can give you an example. Is you saw recently that Trump had an executive order to for car manufacturers where they didn't have to have that feature where your vehicle comes, the engine shuts off at a stoplight. And that right there, they said, is going to save somewhere between $200 and $2,500 per vehicle. But these are the absolutely insane regulations that are put on businesses. And that's just one of thousands of examples. If you want to go to a true free market and you start scaling back, and you don't have to worry about taxes, start scaling back, these regulations on businesses, you will see jobs start coming back to the United States. You will see prices start to drop. It's the easiest thing to do. And I just don't know why anybody can't just say, like, where's our U.S. Chamber of Commerce on this? And they've got to know this, because every business owner on earth, I would bet you would agree with that statement that it's regulation that's causing it difficult to operate in the United States.
Ryan, you get the last word.
I was going to go back and comment on something you said, that the president, or I've always said the president is not that powerful when it all comes down to it. He's there 4 years. Congress is the most powerful institution in this country, and they do nothing. Presidents know that. That's why, to what Dustin said, you're going to have presidents giving executive orders because Congress does nothing. 4 years later, it's going to flip back the other side. President's going to, Biden's first day in office, he got rid of everything Trump did. Trump's first day in office, he reversed everything Biden did. It's just going to be a cyclical cycle like that, as long as you got Congress who does nothing.
And you said last week, Congress knows that they can outlast everybody. They're going to be there.
President there is there 8 years. We've got congressmen there almost as long as I've been alive. So,
okay, folks, we're going to go to our last segment. We call it Looky Here. And this is where we try to bring something up that you might have missed in the news. So I'm going to start with Mike. Okay, Mike, sure. I can show this, right?
I don't even remember what my Looky Here was. So yeah, go ahead and bring it up on the. Oh, that's right. Okay. Well, I know we're supposed to talk about something that most people probably haven't seen, but over the last week since I sent this to you, this has been everywhere. But the California Congressman Mia Bonta, I think was her name, who just happens to be the wife of the California Attorney General, introduced a bill which is being dubbed the Stop Nick Shirley Act. And what the bill does is it imposes a $4,000 fine on anyone who films anyone who they can state that they didn't want to be filmed. And the victim would then file a complaint, and then the perpetrator would get fined for this. And if the video is posted online for others to view, the California government tells them to take it down. And then if they refuse, that fine triples to $12,000. So if the reporter is accused of doxing or creating an imminent threat, I believe they said, they can also be fined an additional $10,000 and then face criminal penalties. It also reclassifies investigative journalism as harassment. I mean, investigative journalism is harassment. So what the Democrats are essentially trying to do is attempting to protect fraudsters and punish anyone who exposes it. I mean, this is a blatant disregard for the First Amendment. And I can't fathom how any politician, Democrat or Republican, would not want to weed out corruption. I mean, if the government has no interest in doing so, it's going to be people like Nick Shirley to point out this to the residents of the states. So I would assume a majority of California residents would want to know if their tax dollars are being misappropriated, or am I wrong?
Ryan, you live in Minnesota, and Minnesota likes to be California, so watch out. Maybe Nick Shirley's going to be illegal there too. We're going to go to your Looky Here segment. This is it.
So last week at the Minnesota legislature, there were Republicans during one of the meetings or whatever were interviewing and questioning the Secretary of State here in Minnesota, and they asked, can illegal immigrants get a driver's license in Minnesota? Yes, they can. Does the driver's license state if they're a U.S. citizen or not? No, they're not. So can a person on election day go in and do same day registration and show them their driver's license and they're here in the state? state issued driver's license. And the Secretary of State reluctantly said, I kind of see where you're getting at here. And the answer, yes, they could. And not only that, if you have a driver's license in Minnesota, you can take up to 8 of your most dearest Somali friends and go vouch for them at the polling place that day. And they don't even need identification. You can just vouch for them. And it's all in the up and up. So no issues going on here with elections.
Okay, in honor of our friend Leon Francis, this was his looky year. This is Ilhan Omar restating her balance sheet, so to speak. In case folks you missed it, she once upon a time reported worth somewhere between 6 million and 30 million. Now she's adjusted that down to less than 100 grand. Just a simple calculator error there, and she just wants us to know that it's been corrected and all's good.
I'm a tax CPA, and I'll let you know if I made a $30 million error like that, I probably wouldn't have a job. But she was probably getting her accountants at the Quality Accounting Center.
Ryan, I was going to ask you, you're from Minnesota. Can you put me in touch with her accountant? I mean, this guy must be the best tax accountant on earth. Give me that person's number.
Okay, my looky here, and I hope I do this right. I think it's going to be the looky here of the year. So currently, this was as of March 26th. There are only two white Christian Democrat men under the age of 40 in the United States Congress. 2 men, white and Christian. This is the first one. His name is Josh Harder. He's from California, District 9. Okay. And this is the second one. Sarah McBride of Delaware. She's the second male that is a white and Christian in the Democrat Congress.
Now,
There's a problem on that side of the aisle in Washington, D.C. Was that funny or not? Come on. Mike, you're not even
That was
laughing.
solid. You can go to work with Jimmy Kimmel with that one.
That was a good one, wasn't it?
I was going to say, with regards to weaponization of government, if Democrats get back in Congress, I would not be able to. I would be arrested if I said she was male.
That is the definition of, or it may be censorship. We're going to have you back again, Dustin. We appreciate you stepping in for.
I've got a
Leon.
looky here, by the way.
You do?
Oh,
Yeah.
have at it.
Lay
Yeah.
it
So,
on.
so yesterday, President Trump invoked the Defense Production Act, and in that, he cited his national energy emergency order from last year. So be on the lookout for how this gets implemented, because if you remember that National Emergency Act and National Energy Emergency Act, which put Doug Burgum and Chris Wright as co-chairs of that energy committee, that could be used to ramrod Republican Green New Deal projects like CO2 pipelines in the states such as South Dakota that have rejected it. So be on the lookout for how the Defense Production Act gets implemented and utilized in conjunction with previous executive orders and how it interferes with states' rights.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Informative. That's why we have looky here, because you might have missed it. Dustin, we'll have you back again. Mike, let's announce who our guest 2 weeks from now is going to be on the hot seat, the very, very hot seat segment.
Yep, sure. In 2 weeks, so that's going to be May 5th. One of the hot topics in North Dakota, anyways, is the Legacy Fund. So, former Representative Dave Weiler, who was the architect of the language that put the Legacy Fund on the ballot for the people to vote for, is going to come on and be in the hot seat, and he's going to tell us about the history of the Legacy Fund, how it works, where the money goes, how we can spend it, and such like that. So, anybody who's interested, there's a lot of talk about the Legacy Fund. So if anybody is interested and wants to know more about it, hopefully you'll watch the show, share it, like it, whatever it takes. But let's get as many people on here and tell people what the Legacy Fund is all about.
We're going to kind of use that hot seat segment is kind of in the classroom or learning a little bit. There's lots of things even I don't know, and just like the general public. And we're going to try to learn a few things rather than just be an opinion-based talk show podcast. So, folks, thanks for watching tonight. We'll see you in 2 weeks. I think, Mike said it's May 5th. Have a good evening.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.